Okay, so I am Professor Castone. This is Biology 101 at Rowan on Gloucester campus for spring of 21. So I wanted to hold this session just to kind of go over some things that maybe were confusing or trying to navigate Blackboard, walk you through the course a little bit. And I also want to give some time for you to ask questions if you have any questions about the material that you've seen so far. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen with you. So let me do that quickly. Okay, so you're going to see some things a little bit different than the way that you would normally see it on Blackboard. You're going to see it from the instructor point of view. So if you see a lot of things here that you have not seen before, there is a reason, because my dashboard looks vastly different than your dashboard. But as I went over in the syllabus day video, your best friend in this course should really be your course calendar. For those of you who like looking at a calendar, like seeing due dates. Okay, I got a couple other people coming in. So I'm going to let them in and kind of proceed here. It looks like some people are struggling with their connection. Okay, so I'm going to continue. So the course calendar, as I mentioned in the syllabus day video, should be your best friend in this course. And you will see here that you can click on your actual assignments. I'm going to try to have most assignments due by the end of the week. And that is for the folks who work very strange shifts. That is, it's really for everybody. But there are some folks out there that work really strange shift work. And I want to make sure that everybody has fair access to everything. Sorry, I'm still letting people in. So if you're just joining us, this is a recorded session. I am going over the Bio 101 course on Blackboard, and right now we're looking at the course calendar. So as you click on each assignment, you as a student should be able to access that assignment. So if ever you're just unsure of when things are due, the course calendar is really an awesome tool to use. So you do see that your Intro to Graphing Lab is due this next Wednesday. So sometimes labs are on different days than other assignments, and that's to try to break things up a little bit. If you run into an issue where you cannot hand in a lab on time and something's happened, we are in a pandemic, so a lot of things have been happening. Please just make me aware. Okay, please, we can work something out with late labs. When it becomes unacceptable is when a lab is like 5 weeks late, 6 weeks late, 7 weeks late. And yes, I have had that before. I have had it where students waited the entire semester to do every single lab. And that is just not a good policy. It's just not a good policy. You will back yourself up if that's what you do, which really just shouldn't even be allowed. But we're trying to work with everybody here. This is new and different for all of us. So let me go back to our course. I'm not going to go through the whole syllabus because that's what the syllabus day video was for. But what I didn't go over was there are a lot of videos in this Start Here folder. And I think almost everybody has joined Remind, which is great. I'm only missing like a couple people on Remind. There are some links here of what online instructors expect from their students. You can kind of see, what is your role here? Like, what's your expectation here? So you'll want to click on that. I'm not going to click on everything and read everything to you. But also, what can you expect from me? What can you expect from an online instructor, especially one that we're not doing live sessions. This is not a live session course. This is a live session, but it's not mandatory. Then we have our netiquette policy, which is just, pause before you send an email that you're upset, or you're upset about a grade, or you're just upset about anything, you want to pause before you send an email or you send a remind text, and just ask yourself, am I putting too much emotion into this, where someone could perceive this as being aggressive? And that has happened before, where people get frustrated. They get frustrated with what's going on in their life. They get frustrated with what's going on in the course. They get frustrated with the labs. Doing a lab at home is not easy, So if you get frustrated with the labs, trust me, I know where you're coming from. I demo a lot of the labs here at my house to see what I might need to troubleshoot. And I have young kids who are very curious, so I can understand. But again, if you're going to communicate to me or communicate to someone from the college at all, you really need to make sure that you are being professional. Now, you will see some things that are posted here have CCC on them, and that's because they originated from the Cumberland campus, but they still apply to Rowan overall. We don't call the Cumberland campus CCC anymore, but we are all one big college together. So we also have some other useful resources for you, and I highly suggest taking a look at those resources. Another important feature here is the how-to instructional videos. So I think almost everybody in the course at this point has turned in something on Blackboard, because you had your lab agreement, you had your Carolina kit tracking document. I think everybody has turned something in. And so far, it's been really successful, and I've been really happy about that. In the past, all of my Mac users turn in files that I can't read. Like, that's what's happened in the past. So if you're a Mac person and you're operating off of an Apple, you need to make sure that your file is easily read as either a Microsoft Word or a Google Doc. I myself am not a Mac user. I have nothing against Mac users. I just didn't grow up that way, like didn't grow up using a Mac. So at this point in time in my life, I'm not really sure how easy it would be for me to learn everything Mac. So when I get all of the Mac stuff, usually I send a note back that says, can't open it, try again. Okay. So if that's the case, please try to convert your document to something that's readable by a PC user. Okay, how to submit assignments. So that's right there. But so far, I'm surprised. Like, everybody's doing well with that. Had a lot of issues last semester with that. How to check your grades. Of course, everybody wants to know how to check their grades. So make sure that you're constantly logging into Blackboard and taking a look at all the points that you've earned. How to edit your notification settings, and that's with Blackboard as well. How to use Zoom. Well, here we are. I mean, you've logged into Zoom. But I don't know. You'll never have to use it as if like you were the host. You won't have to do that. So no worries there. And then Blackboard discussions, we're not really going to use discussion features, but we are going to use Wiki towards the end of the semester. And I will go over how to use that at the time. So if you've never created a Wiki before on Blackboard, we are going to be creating a Wiki. And then, of course, how to send and receive course messages, how to take a test online. So all of our tests are online. And your first test is pretty quick. It comes up after you finish chapter 3. So you'll want to pay attention to that. And then, of course, I will always post a link. And then you have 2 hours to take the test. 2 hours. So you could do 15 minutes and then pause the test and then do the rest later. You can always pause. You just have to cumulatively, you have 2 hours. Sometimes I'll give a little bit more if I think the content is heavy, but I'm basing this off of what I did last semester, and last semester 2 hours seemed to work for everybody. So we're going to stick with 2 hours for right now. Okay. So the lab documents folder, I haven't really talked a lot about. Like, I didn't talk a lot about it in the syllabus day video, but that's where you have to have your Carolina kit document. So you have to have your voucher and a picture of your voucher. to go into that document, because there's been so many issues with the lab kits that we have to have a way to track them. And we want to make sure you're going to get your kit, because we don't want you getting it the last week of the semester. That would be really bad. So then you have your lab safety agreement. And then underneath of all that is every single lab that you have to do. Every single one. Okay. And you can see there's videos that I've posted with some, there's pictures that I've posted with some. You know, you're going to go on a scavenger hunt when it comes to the plant lab. So you can see here, I'm like showing a picture of like how to do the scavenger hunt. So I have my mask in the picture, and we'll go through all of that. I don't want you to inundate yourself with every single thing in week one. You need to take it week by week. Okay. As we all do, we all need to take it week by week. So with that in mind, your intro to graphing lab is your first lab, and it's due on Wednesday. So if you click on here, here's your background and directions. Okay. When you click on that, everything's there. And the biggest issue for my students is the ones who don't have a printer or access to a printer. So that can create an issue, because a lot of students want to do their graphs by hand. You don't have to. You don't. I think there's one graph that you need to do in this lab by hand. So at the end of this lab right here, I know I'm like just really scrolling through it quickly. At the end of this lab right here is graph paper. I think you have to show me that you can do one graph by hand. I think it's one. And then you do have to do some using either Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets. You should really pick whatever you're comfortable with. If you've never used either of them before, then the sooner you crack open this lab and the sooner you try it, the better, because you have something to learn here. You know, those of you who have used Excel and used Google Sheets and you're good to go on making a line graph or a bar graph or whatever, you know, you might not have as much learning here to do. But those of you who have never made a graph on the computer, you will have some things to do here. And the lab walks you right through it. So that's the really nice thing, is the lab just walks you right through it. Most labs, by the way, are worth 10 points. And a lot of times students get frustrated with that. They're like, it took me an hour, you know, but there's like 12 labs across the course. So all 12 of them together add up to the same as an exam, you know, a little over. So there are a couple labs that I feel are so long and so detailed that I give them more than 10 points. But our department-wide sort of policy here is that the labs generally are 10 points apiece. And you want to make it count. You want to make it count. You know, you want to earn all the points that you can possibly earn. So all your labs are open. It's just that I don't have all of the turn-in buttons active for you to start turning in any lab you want. But if you wanted to work ahead on labs, if you had biology in high school and you're like, I think I kind of know what I'm doing here, then you could certainly work ahead. But you might have to wait for me to turn on the turn-in button. Okay. And what I mean by turn-in button is there's a link for every lab. You saw it a little bit earlier. So intro to graphing. Okay. Intro to graphing turn-in button right here. So it says for this lab, there are 3 activities. Activity 1, graph by hand. Activity 2, graph on the computer. Activity 3, fill out a table and submit by typing the information into a word processing document, such as MS Word or Google Doc, or by typing the info into the submission box. Okay, now you might be like, what's the submission box? I don't know what that is. Well, on every single turn in for this course, there's this area called text submission, and you can actually write something there and I can read it. So if you needed to add something into a lab, or there was, something that didn't turn out very well in a file, and you needed to make sure that I was going to see it, then put it in the text submission box. You're not going to be able to put in the text submission box like tables or graphs. They have to be separate files, but you can write something there and I will see it. So if there was like a short answer or something like that. Other than that, everyone really needs to note here the types of files that are acceptable in Blackboard. This is where a lot of my students get confused. So they do accept DOC, DOCX, so those are basically Microsoft Word, DOCM, PowerPoint, PowerPoint X, which is a later version, ODT, a text file, a rich text file, PDF, HTML, but that's it. That's it. And you have to know what kind of file you're giving me. Sometimes students are really unaware of the type of file that they're sending me, and then they don't know why it won't show up for me. Like I always say, when in doubt, make a PDF. If you have the ability to make a PDF on your computer, make a PDF, because they seem to always go through. They always come through and they look great. So other types of files, sometimes things get shifted around and then I'll send you a message and say I couldn't read it. Now, when I can't read something, I don't give you a 0. I don't dock a bunch of points off. I give you other chances to send it in. I mean, this is an online course and we're all kind of learning how to navigate this course. So you want to make sure that you read my messages in Blackboard. The other thing is, worst case scenario, if you make Google Docs, like a lot of people do Google now, because I mean, it's free, right? Like you just go to google.com, you get yourself an account and you can make Google Docs and Google Sheets and Google everything. Then if you do it that way and you want to share the document with me, I'm just going to show you what that would look like really quickly, because there are students who do this, and then what happens is they email it to me, and then my email starts to get flooded with all kinds of like shared documents, and that doesn't really work out too well. So let's say you're in a Google Doc. I'm just going to open up a blank sheet here and erase my drawings from earlier. If you make a Google Doc, you need to come over to your file button, and all you have to do is hit file download. Sorry, I have a bunch of boxes open up here and I can't see what there we go. File download. Download is Microsoft Word. Download is ODT. We saw that that was accepted in Blackboard. Rich text format is, but I wouldn't mess around with that one. That one seems to jumble everything up. And there it is, PDF. So if you do make a Google Doc, download it as a PDF, hit it up in your downloads, like find it on your actual computer in the download section, and then put that onto Blackboard. What I'm begging everybody not to do is please do not share a million documents with me with my RCSJ email, because I'll tell you right now, as an adjunct professor, they don't give us a lot of data for our inbox. So when it fills with all these like shared Google things, then I don't get emails, and that's a problem. And if you read in the syllabus, you shouldn't be emailing me assignments anyway. I really do not accept emailed assignments. They have to come through Blackboard. And the reason for that is because if not, they're just going to get lost. They're just going to get lost, or I have to go find them, and it makes a lot more work. So Blackboard is our one-stop shop for assignments and for grades and really for everything. So make sure you're submitting your assignments through Blackboard. Okay, so as the labs come up, you can feel free to go ahead and do them. All your instructions are in Blackboard in this lab documents area, instructions for every single lab. Last semester, I had a girl who worked one lab ahead every week, one lab ahead, just so that she could be ahead. She had a lot of things going on in her life. She had children, so she always worked a lab ahead. And that kind of kept her paced really nicely in the class. After intro to graphing, we're going to have the scientific method lab, which is called Plop Plop Fizz, because you're going to be doing a few little experiments with Alka-Seltzer. Okay. And I'll probably send out some videos to like clue you into some mistakes that I saw last semester with people doing this lab, so that, you guys will have something to look at and say, okay, now I know that this doesn't mean that, or that I need to know what the independent and the dependent variable are, because she's going to grade me on that. So, you'll see as they start to get harder, as the labs start to get harder, I have videos, I have pictures posted, and that's because, students needed something to look at, to do a walkthrough. Doing labs at home, as I said, is not easy, but we don't want it to be super stressful for you either. Okay, and then I had a few questions this week about quizzes. A few students are like, I don't really, where's my grade? I did it 10 times. Now where's my grade? So here's how quizzes works. So those of you, hopefully you're finding it fun, first of all. It is a game, but it's meant to quiz you with questions. And I take your highest score. So the more you do it and the better you become, I take your highest score, and the report comes to me off of Blackboard. It's something that actually doesn't articulate with Blackboard. So it comes to me off of Blackboard. I write it down, and then I put it in Blackboard, so that I actually have to manually put in. So your quizzes, you're free to do them whenever you feel like, and they're a nice little review before you're going to have a test, because your tests are typically multiple choice questions. And then starting with exam 2, you'll have open-endeds as well, open-ended questions. But the open-ended questions will be outside of the 2 hours. So what I mean by that is the multiple choice takes 2 hours, and then the open-ended, I usually give you a few days to turn in, so that you can really craft a nice answer for the open-ended questions. And, then the 2 grades together are added together to become your exam grade. So you guys will not see this yet on your end, but I already have week 2 up to bat. So once week 1 is done, which actually is at midnight tonight, like 11:59 tonight, week 1 is done, right? I'm not going to make it disappear, because I've had issues with that in the past, where people are like, no, I wanted to see it again. Where did it go? What I will do is I will put a strike through, like I will cross out all of these assignments that are now overdue. So you'll see a strike through, and they will go, I typically put them in red, like green meant go, red meant stop, we're done. So now for week 2 coming up, this will be green, and this will be your active weekly folder. So you can see that you have the graphing lab due 127, Plop Plop Fizz Fizz lab is going to be due by 1:30. Chemistry and water quizzes is due by 1:30, and watching some ed puzzles is also due by 1:30. And the intention there is not to put everything on one day. Nobody in this course should be waiting till the last minute to be a weekend warrior, right? Like, you need to tackle this work piece by piece through the week. So exam 1 will open on 1/31, and that's the day that it'll be due. And it's 50 points. It's your only 50-point exam, and it's on chapters 1, 2, and 3. So It's always in the syllabus what, what chapters are on an exam. And it's, like I said, it's your only 50.1, so it's only multiple choice. That's the only thing that it is. And there'll be instructions with it when it comes in. But, it'll also be found in this folder. So I'm trying to think of what else comes up. Usually the labs is like the first thing that people are like, oh my gosh, like I'm trying to do this at my house and this part exploded and I don't know what to do now. We'll work it out. We'll figure it out somehow. Even last semester, I had to end up sending some of my lab kit pieces out to students who ended up missing pieces. So I would strongly suggest lab 1, you're not going to miss any pieces, right? Like lab 1 is graphic. Starting with lab 2 and lab 3, I would start checking to see if Carolina gave you everything you need. Because we have found that sometimes things are missing and that becomes a problem. So the sooner you can start inventorying your lab kit, the better. Like I would inventory it a week in advance of every lab, or if you had the time on your hands, you could really inventory it for everything. But, I know that's a lot. That's a lot to ask. So when I say inventory, you would come right to the lab documents and let's click on Plop Plop Fizz just to see what you would need here. You would click on background and procedures, and in there is your materials that you need. So you need to make sure that they're in your kit, right? If they left out Alka-Seltzer, I mean, honestly, that's no big deal. You can get that at ShopRite or wherever you shop. But as we start to go towards more complicated labs, if they left something out, you need to tell them. And it's, it's nothing against you when they leave something out. It's just one of those things where, human error. And I did have a few students last semester. Out of like 50 students, I would say I had maybe 5 that ended up missing stuff out of their lab kit. But, you have to contact Carolina and let them know. And it's a shame because I realize you guys paid money for it and they should get it right. But, things happen. Things happen and we're trying to be gracious to everybody. So, okay. So you can see that this one here, this one has a little bit more components to it. And here I put in a video on how do I graph the lab. So, I'm not trying to inundate you guys with too much information, but I did want to kind of give a little bit of a walkthrough, just because, it's a lot, especially if you've never taken an online course before. And none of you have really shared that with me yet. If you're like, I've never done this before. But it can be a lot. It can be overwhelming. And if you're ever in need, you can always one-on-one Zoom with me. You can just say, I need a one-on-one. I'm not understanding something. I'm not understanding this. Like, can you help me further? And the sooner you do something like that, the better. I think one other thing I wanted to show you was Cyber Cafe. I think that's used. Okay, so this Cyber Cafe, like there's a thread in here from before. Let me delete that. Cyber Cafe is for you guys to actually interact with each other. So in the Cyber Cafe, I don't know if you've ever used Cyber Cafe before, but in a real class, you would be interacting with each other. You'd be saying like, hey, anybody have this issue or anybody have that issue? Where you're like, I don't know that I really need to talk to Professor Castone about this, but does anybody else have this sort of thing going on? Or, does anybody, where you might want to talk to the other people in the class. You can do that in Cyber Cafe. So Cyber Cafe is for you guys to interact with each other, ask each other questions, give each other answers. I will check into Cyber Cafe, or if you write something in Cyber Cafe and you're like, no one's reading my post, then tell me and I'll send out a text to everybody like, hey, there's a question in Cyber Cafe, can anybody answer it? So you just create a thread and you post your question and you just see if anybody else had the same thing happen that you had. Like maybe you had something weird happen with a lab, or maybe you had something else going on, or maybe something happened in an ed puzzle. You can always post that in the Cyber Cafe. So I think for the most part, that's really it. Like for now. I will be sending out something about you guys signing up for Flipgrid, and that is how you're going to do your presentations for class. So Flipgrid is like a website where you can present information, almost like you're holding a Zoom, but nobody attends your Zoom. Like the only person who attends is me. So I actually watch your presentation, and if you're uncomfortable, if you're like, oh, I was comfortable with you not seeing my face, you can actually put like a big emoji over your face. You can pixelate yourself. It's really kind of cool. So I will be sending out information for everybody to sign up for Flipgrid, and everybody gets their own personal invitation to sign up for Flipgrid. You get your own personal code. So I will probably do that in a couple weeks once our roster settles out and I make sure that like whoever is here is staying, or whoever is not going to stay in class is going to go, and then maybe somebody who's waitlisted will come in. So at this time, I'd like to open it up for some questions. If any of you have any questions, you can drop it in the chat. Is there anything that you found confusing? I will be sending out a remind text soon just to remind everybody that there's work due today. There's work due today. The week one work is coming due in about 6 hours. And there are a few individuals who still have it to do. So if anybody has any questions, please drop it in the chat and I will be sure to answer your question. I'm hoping that, everybody got a textbook. I think that's the biggest question I get is like, do I really have to buy this thing? Buy it used, buy it used somewhere. That's my best advice to people. I can't tell you not to buy it. It's a requirement for the course. So yeah, see, so here we have all these assignments due today. And I will be doing like an activity where you can introduce yourself to me. You don't have to introduce yourself to the whole class, but just to say like, hey, and now that I think about it, I might actually do that on Flipgrid where everybody can like kind of get a feel for Flipgrid and just do it that way. Usually I have people just submit like, hi, my name is, this is what I do. And I like cooking. I like watching diners, drive-ins, and dives, or okay. Tiara, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I got your message. I am going to respond to that. So look for an answer from me, okay? Because I have a question. Okay, so if no one else has a question, or you feel like you've kind of, okay, I think I got it. I think I know it all. Then, I'm going to conclude this Zoom. I am going to post it. But I do want you all to make sure that you look for an invitation from me to Flipgrid. Okay. And we'll kind of talk about like how Flipgrid works.